I hated you, she whispered through the rain. Not because of the bet, not because of the money, but because you made me feel something real in the middle of something so terribly fake. In a world where everything has a price, can love real, raw, and redemptive truly survive? This is the story of Olivia Hart and Lucas Sterling, a story of betrayal and forgiveness, of pride and sacrifice, of two hearts finding each other against all odds. Stay with us to experience a journey where dignity is tested, where trust is shattered and rebuilt, and where love in the end proves to be the most priceless thing of all. If this sounds like the kind of story that touches your soul, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life. Now let's begin. The low hum of hospital machines filled the sterile corridor, blending into Olivia Hart's exhausted mind. She leaned against the wall, fingers tightening around a stack of medical bills that felt heavier than stone room 3. 21 waited ahead, her mother's room, the numbers cold and accusing. $28,000. The figure blurred before Olivia's weary eyes, every syllable a weight pressing harder on her chest. Miss Hart. The administrator's voice pulled her back. We need to finalize payment. Olivia straightened her faded diner uniform worn from an endless shift. I will figure it out. She said the lie, smooth from practice. At 24, Olivia had mastered survival, juggling 2 jobs, surviving on caffeine and hope. But standing there, even her stubborn heart trembled. That cold November morning unfolded like so many others. Gray skies, black coffee, and dreams hanging by threads. The Willow Cafe, tucked on a quiet Boston street, offered warmth against the biting wind. Steam curled above chipped mugs. The smell of fresh bread almost masked the ache in her chest. Double espresso, extra shot, came a crisp British voice. Olivia glanced up, smile automatic, until she saw him, tailored charcoal suit, sharp lines, colder eyes. Power clung to him like a second skin. Name, she asked, marker, hovering. Lucas Sterling. He answered, attention still glued to his phone. Another executive. She thought another man who would never see her beyond the uniform. $4.25, she said, cool and clipped. Only then did he glance up and something shifted in his gray gaze. You are new, he observed. No, Olivia replied, steady. Almost a year, you just never noticed. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. My oversight. From his wallet, a black card emerged, the kind that whispered wealth. And then, as casually as breathing, he said, have dinner with me. Olivia laughed short and sharp. I do not date customers, Mr. Sterling. Especially not ones who think everything can be bought. His smile only deepened. Everyone has a price, Miss Hart. It is just a matter of finding the right one. Before she could answer, he placed a business card on the counter. In careful handwriting, $900,000. One night, the cafe spun around her. Olivia gripped the counter, pulse roaring in her ears. Leave, she whispered. Lucas remained calm, sliding the card closer. You seem like someone who could use it. Her hand shot out. She meant to rip it apart, but somehow it slipped into her apron pocket. Your coffee will be ready at the end, she said through clenched teeth. Please do not come back. He nodded once and walked out, the bell chiming faintly behind him. Frozen in place, Olivia could only feel the searing burn of the card against her skin and hear the treacherous whisper in her mind. $28,000. One night. Olivia's fingers gripped the business card, fully intending to tear it apart, but somewhere between anger and despair, her hand betrayed her. The card disappeared into her apron pocket, a silent pact she could not bear to acknowledge. Your espresso will be ready at the end of the counter, Mr. Sterling, she said, her voice like ice cracking over deep water. Please do not come back. Lucas offered no reply. He simply took his coffee and left the soft chime of the cafe door a cruel punctuation to their encounter. For a long moment, Olivia remained rooted behind the counter, her heart pounding so violently she could hear it echo in her ears. The thin sliver of cardstock burned against her side heavier than iron. She hated him. She hated the way he had reduced life-altering decisions into casual transactions, hated his smug assurance, hated the cruel offer itself. But what she hated most, with a bitterness that tasted of shame, was the tiny, desperate voice inside her that whispered of overdue hospital bills, of experimental treatments, slipping further out of reach of the only family she had left, slipping away. The morning rush blurred past her in a haze of faces and orders. Olivia moved mechanically, her fingers brushing against the card in her pocket. Again and again, each accidental touch, a stab of temptation. That night, in the cramped stillness of her apartment in East Boston, Olivia sat cross-legged on her narrow bed, the card lying before her like a snake. Lucas Sterling, Chief Executive Officer, Sterling Industries. A sleek phone number in silver script winked under the lamp's harsh light. Beside it, 2 more cruel reminders. Her mother's latest lab results bleak. And the final notice from the hospital's billing department, merciless, $900,000, one night. A simple offer with consequences. She could not begin to measure. Olivia stared at her phone, its blank screen reflecting her own haunted expression. Her finger hovered over the keypad, trembling with fear, rage, and something dangerously close to hope. It was not pride that crumbled first. It was love, a desperate love that would do anything, even this, to keep her mother alive. With a breath that shook her whole body, she pressed the call button. The line rang 3 times before a voice answered, smooth and sure, like velvet laced with poison. "I knew you would call," Lucas said. Olivia squeezed her eyes shut, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "I hate you," she whispered. "That," he replied, his voice low and almost amused, "is not a requirement. The Astoria Hotel." He continued, "Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock sharp. I will have the paperwork ready." She hung up without answering, letting the phone slip from her fingers onto the bedspread. Outside, the city lights blurred into a mosaic of color, a distorted dream slipping through her grasp. In the distance, a siren wailed a lonely cry that seemed to echo the breaking inside her. Tomorrow she would cross a line she once thought sacred. Tomorrow she would sell a part of herself she might never reclaim. Tonight she allowed herself one last act of defiance, to grieve for the girl. She had been the girl who believed that some things like dignity could never be bought. Across the city, in the gleaming height of a penthouse office, Lucas Sterling stared down at his own phone, her final words reverberating in the hollow spaces of his chest. He had closed billion-dollar deals without blinking. But somehow the quiet fury in Olivia Hart's voice thrilled and unsettled him in ways he did not understand. The game was set. The first move had been made. Neither of them yet realized that what was at stake was not money, but something far more costly, the fragile, reckless currency of the heart. The concierge's polished smile barely wavered. "Ah, Miss Hart, Mr. Sterling is expecting you in the penthouse suite. Please follow me." The elevator doors slid shut with a soft hiss, and the ascent began 40 floors of rising doubt. Each glowing number overhead felt like another step toward a point of no return. Halfway up, her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital stable. "For now," it read. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, drawing strength from the words she could not afford to falter. The penthouse door opened with a soft click. The suite was breathtaking walls of glass, revealing a glittering Boston skyline, a living room bigger than her entire apartment. But it was not the luxury that stole her breath. It was him. Lucas stood near a leather armchair, a glass in hand, as composed as a king in his private court. His presence seemed to fill the room, making the air itself feel heavier. Right on time. He said, his British accent weaving around the words with smooth precision. I admire punctuality. Olivia kept her voice cool. Let us skip the small talk. You mentioned a contract. A small smile flickered across his mouth. He gestured toward a sleek dining table where a leather folder waited. Straight to business, I like that. She walked past him without hesitation, ignoring the way the air seemed to shift as she moved. Her fingers opened the folder with steady precision, revealing a thick contract printed on expensive, weighty paper. Lucas came to stand behind her close enough that she could feel his warmth pricking at her back. It is simple, he said, voice low. One night, complete discretion, in exchange for $900,000. Olivia's eyes scanned the pages. Cold legal language. Clean clinical terms for something messy and human. You do this often. The question escaped her lips before she could pull it back. No, Lucas said. There was something raw in his voice that made her glance over her shoulder. His steel-gray eyes were focused, serious, searching. You are the first. I do not believe you, Olivia said flatly. He shrugged, the movement elegant. Believe what you wish. The money will be transferred before anything happens. You can walk away at any moment. Olivia gave a brittle laugh. How generous! She reached for the pen inside her bag, the simple weight of it heavier than gold. Wait, Lucas said suddenly, his hand covering hers. The contact jolted her, a spark of something fierce and unwelcome shooting up her arm. She jerked her hand away. What now? Another clause about my silence. Afraid I will run to the tabloids. No! He moved around the table, forcing her to meet his gaze. I need you to understand this is not about power or ownership. Then what is it about Mr. Sterling? Her words were thick with sarcasm. His jaw tightened. You fascinate me. She blinked, caught off guard. Your defiance, your pride. Even now, standing here about to sign away your dignity, you look at me like I am the one beneath you. Maybe because buying people does not make you superior, Olivia shot back, her voice sharp. It just makes you rich enough to pretend. The tension between them stretched taut, buzzing like a live wire. Sign it. Lucas said softly, his voice a low current. Or leave. But do not lie to yourself. You chose to be here. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen once more. Each signature she placed on the contract felt like nailing shut a door she would never open again. When she finished, she stood straighter, meeting his gaze without flinching. There, she said, you own me for the next 12 hours. I hope it is worth your $900,000. Lucas took the folder from her, his fingers deliberately brushing hers, sending another unwanted shiver up her spine. Check your phone, he said. Olivia obeyed, her thumb swiping across the screen. The message was clear. A deposit had been made. 7 figures. Just like that. Her vision swam for a moment. Now, Lucas said, his voice dropping to something darker, rougher. Understand this, Olivia. I do not own you. He stepped closer, his gaze burning. But tonight, I intend to possess you. Without another word, Olivia turned away, heading toward the sanctuary of marble and chrome that was the bathroom. Lucas's brow furrowed slightly, but he let her go. Inside. Olivia gripped the edge of the sink, forcing herself to breathe. Her reflection stared back at her flushed cheeks, wide, bewildered eyes. She barely recognized herself. Splashing cold water on her face, careful not to smudge her carefully applied makeup. She blinked back the sting of unwanted tears. Her phone screen was still lit with the bank notification. With trembling fingers, she opened her banking app, entering the hospital's information with mechanical precision. The confirmation flashed almost immediately. Her mother's treatment fully paid. Relief should have flooded her. Instead, a tight knot formed in her chest, threatening to choke her. She refused to cry here. Not now, not with him, just beyond the door. Outside, she could hear faint sounds, the clink of glass against glass. The soft hum of music. Lucas was setting the scene, preparing whatever version of a night he thought he had purchased. Drawing a shaky breath, Olivia faced the mirror one last time. The woman staring back at her was familiar, yet different. Same green eyes, same stubborn tilt of the chin, but something fundamental inside her had shifted. There was no going back now. Straightening her shoulders, Olivia stepped into the main room. Lucas stood by the wide windows, the city sprawling behind him in a sea of glittering lights. His jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up his stance, casual but watchful. He turned at the sound of her footsteps. "Better," he asked, his voice surprisingly soft. "Do not," she said, crossing the room to him close enough to catch the scent of his expensive cologne. "Do not pretend you care. This is a transaction. Remember." His hand rose almost instinctively, cupping her cheek. His thumb brushed lightly along her skin, sending an involuntary shiver through her. "What if I want more than a transaction?" he murmured. "You cannot buy more than that," she whispered back, even as her body betrayed her. Leaning into his touch, Lucas's other hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer. "Then we will see," he said lowly. His mouth found hers in a kiss that shattered any illusion of detachment. It was fierce, consuming a firestorm that neither of them seemed capable of resisting. Outside, the city continued its indifferent glitter, oblivious to the two souls about to lose themselves completely. The kiss deepened, and Olivia felt her carefully built defenses crumble. Lucas's hands tangled in her hair, drawing her closer still, while her own hands fisted in the fabric of his shirt. "I want to see you," he breathed against her throat, his accent roughened by desire. Heart pounding, Olivia stepped back slightly. Her fingers found the zipper at her back, the small sound of it sliding down, echoing like a dare between them. "Wait," Lucas said, voice suddenly gentler. He crossed to the minibar, pouring amber whiskey into 2 crystal glasses. "You are shaking." "I am fine," Olivia snapped, but she took the offered drink anyway. The whiskey burned a path down her throat, sharpening her senses and numbing her fear. Lucas watched her, his steel-gray eyes dark with something heavier than simple lust. "We do not have to do this," he said quietly. Olivia set the glass down with a sharp clink. Her voice was tight, almost breaking. "Do not pretend, Lucas. You bought this night. Take it." A muscle ticked in his jaw at her words. In 2 strides, he was standing before her again, his presence overwhelming. One hand gripped her waist. The other tilted her chin until their eyes met. "I bought time, Olivia," he said, voice rough. "Not submission, not you." The distinction in his words startled her, but before Olivia could find a response, Lucas's mouth was on hers again. This kiss was different, still urgent, but laced with something unexpectedly tender. It was both a demand and a plea, wild yet restrained, setting her heart racing. Even as her mind screamed warnings she could no longer hear. Her body betrayed her, first melting into him as her black dress slipped from her shoulders and pooled soundlessly at her feet. Lucas's sharp, indrawn breath was the only sound between them. His hands skimmed down her sides, leaving fire in their wake. "You are beautiful," he murmured against her skin, and for a fleeting moment, Olivia almost let herself believe he meant it. The bedroom loomed beyond them, bathed in soft moonlight filtering through towering windows, the wide bed an island of white silk and shadows. Each step Olivia took toward it felt like a surrender, and each touch they shared a battle between pride and something deeper, something more dangerous. When Lucas laid her gently down onto the cool silk sheets, Olivia closed her eyes, fighting the sting of unexpected tears. "Look at me," he whispered. Slowly she obeyed, and the intensity in his gaze stole the air from her lungs. "Stay with me," he said, "here, now." Their bodies moved together, an unspoken symphony of sighs and unvoiced confessions. With each moment, Lucas's rigid control fractured, revealing not a billionaire or a tycoon, but a man undone by the woman in his arms. For Olivia, every kiss, every brush of skin against skin was a contradiction. Pain and pleasure, freedom and captivity, surrender and defiance, all wrapped into one. When it was over, they lay tangled in silence, the silver lights of Boston painting, shifting patterns across their bare skin. Words hung heavy in the air, words neither dared to speak. Lucas traced lazy, absent-minded patterns along her shoulder, an intimacy that rattled her more than his touch ever could. "Why me?" Olivia asked suddenly, the question escaping before she could trap it. His hand stilled. "Why did you accept?" He countered, voice low. "You know why?" she said, sitting up quickly, clutching the sheet to her chest like a shield. "The hospital bills. My mother—" "No," he said, propping himself up on one elbow to meet her eyes. "That is why you considered it, not why you said yes." The truth in his voice cut too close. Olivia's chest tightened painfully. Without answering, she slipped from the bed, gathering her clothes with quick, efficient movements. "I should go," she said, her voice stiff. "Stay," Lucas murmured. The word was halfway between a command and a plea. "That was not part of the deal," Olivia said, coldly disappearing into the bathroom. When she emerged minutes later, fully dressed, the armor she wore was no longer fabric. It was a carefully rebuilt wall between them. Lucas had pulled on his pants but remained barefoot, his hair mussed, making him look almost painfully human. "Have dinner with me tomorrow," he said. Suddenly Olivia froze her purse halfway over her shoulder. "A real dinner," he continued. "No contracts, no money." A brittle laugh escaped her lips. "You already got what you paid for Mr. Sterling." His expression darkened, frustration flashing across his features. "Because there is something between us and you feel it too." "What I feel," Olivia said sharply, "is the overwhelming need to leave." She turned toward the door, but his next words pinned her in place. "You are running because you are afraid." Olivia whirled around, anger flaring so hot it made her vision blur. Afraid of what? Of the arrogant CEO who thinks he can buy anything, including people. Lucas crossed the space between them in 2 strides. "No," he said, voice tight. "You are afraid because what happened tonight was not what either of us expected. It was not just a transaction, and that terrifies you. You are delusional," she hissed, but her voice trembled, giving her away. "Am I—" Lucas lifted a hand to her cheek, and for a moment, against all reason, Olivia leaned into the warmth of it before pulling back sharply. "Have dinner with me," he said, quieter now. "Prove me wrong." "Goodbye, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice cold. She fled the suite, the sharp clack of her heels against marble echoing like gunshots down the empty corridor. The elevator ride down felt endless, a blur of emotions Olivia refused to name. In the lobby, the concierge offered a polite nod, but to Olivia, it felt like silent judgment. She stepped into the cold night air, the wind hitting her like a slap cutting through the thin fabric of her coat. Her phone buzzed, missed calls from the hospital. Her heart jumped into her throat, but when she opened the messages, relief flooded her. The experimental treatment was approved. The first procedure would begin tomorrow. Her mother would live. Olivia stood there on the sidewalk, shivering under the Boston streetlights, torn between the weight of her choices and the fragile thread of hope that might just have made it all worth it. Her mother would live. So why, standing alone in the biting wind, did Olivia feel like she had lost something she could never recover? High above the city, Lucas Sterling stood at the window of his penthouse watching as Olivia's figure disappeared into a waiting taxi. The suite still carried the faint scent of her perfume, and his body still ached from the memory of her touch. He had not expected this, the hollow ache, the sharp pull to call her back. It gnawed at him, a regret he could not drown no matter how hard he tried. His phone buzzed on the table, a message from Richard Stanton, his business partner. "Did you win the bet?" Lucas stared at the words, a cold nausea twisting in his gut. The bet. A foolish drunken dare proved that even the untouchable had a price. It seemed laughable now, cruel in ways he had never foreseen. He left the message unanswered, pouring himself another whiskey instead. The burn down his throat was sharp, but offered no comfort. Nothing could erase the look Olivia had given him as she fled. A look that said he had confirmed every terrible fear she had about him. The night stretched on heavy with silence full of regret. He had not made a mistake in choosing her. He had made a mistake in thinking what happened between them could ever be reduced to a simple transaction. As dawn broke over Boston, two souls lay restless in separate corners of the city, one in a glass penthouse, one in a cramped apartment, both wrestling with the painful truth that some prices were too high and some feelings could never be bought. The Willow Cafe felt different under the sharp glare of morning light. Olivia moved through her shift mechanically, her body present but her mind far away, trapped in endless loops of memory. Every time the door chimed, her heart leapt stupidly, hoping, dreading, but Lucas never appeared. "You look awful," Ruby Martinez said gently, balancing a tray of fresh pastries behind the counter. "Rough night." Olivia forced a tired smile. "Just exhausted. My mom starts treatment today." Ruby's face lit up. "That's incredible. They approved it. I found a way to pay for it," Olivia murmured. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "Girl spill?" "Rob a bank, win the lottery." Ruby's teasing grin faded when she caught the look in Olivia's eyes. "Hey, what's really going on?" Before Olivia could answer, the door swung open, letting in a blast of cold air and a man who made her blood run cold. Not Lucas. Someone worse. Richard Stanton. His face was too familiar from late-night searches through Sterling Industries' website. "Welcome to Willow Cafe," Ruby called brightly. But Richard's eyes locked on Olivia with an unsettling precision. "Miss Hart," he said smoothly, flashing a smile that never touched his eyes. "Might I have a word?" Olivia's fingers curled around the counter's edge. "I'm working. It is about Lucas and your arrangement," he added, lowering his voice. Ruby raised her brows in silent question. "Take your break," Ruby whispered. "I'll cover." Reluctantly, Olivia untied her apron and followed Richard to a quiet corner booth. He sat with the easy arrogance of a man used to owning every room he entered, adjusting his silk tie with casual precision. "I will be brief," he said, leaning in. "Lucas seems to have forgotten about a little wager we had." Olivia stiffened. "Wager?" Richard's smile widened. "Oh, he did not tell you." Her heart began pounding painfully. "We made a friendly bet." Richard continued, his tone almost conversational, on whether Lucas could convince someone principled. Someone who would never consider such an arrangement to spend the night with him. For the right price, of course. The cafe seemed to tilt under her feet. "You are lying," Olivia whispered, nails biting into her palms under the table. Richard reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket with infuriating calm. Richard Stanton pulled out his phone with casual precision, scrolling through his messages before sliding it across the table toward Olivia. The evidence glowed on the screen, a string of texts between Richard and Lucas from 2 weeks ago. The bet. The challenge. Her name. $900,000. Lucas's idea. "I thought it was a bit much," Richard said, his voice almost amused. "But he insisted, said someone like you would never settle for less, and clearly he was right." Olivia pushed back her chair so abruptly it screeched against the floor. "Get out," she said through gritted teeth. "Gladly," Richard said, standing. But before leaving, he slid a business card across the table. "If you ever want a better offer, call me. After all, you've proven flexible." The slap cracked across the cafe like a thunderclap. Richard staggered slightly, a red mark blooming on his cheek. The few morning customers fell into stunned silence. "Keep your filthy money," Olivia spat, "and tell Lucas Sterling he can go straight to hell." She stormed past Ruby, who stared after her wide-eyed, and fled into the back room. Only when the door clicked shut behind her did Olivia finally crumble, collapsing into the employee bathroom as racking sobs overtook her. It had not been a transaction. It had been a game. A bet. Her humiliation burned hotter than any rage. Her phone buzzed again. Lucas's name flashed on the screen, and with shaking hands, Olivia blocked the number without hesitation. When she finally re-emerged, Ruby was waiting. Arms crossed, concern etched deeply into her face. "Want to tell me why you just slapped one of Boston's biggest venture capitalists?" Ruby asked, voice low but firm. Olivia wiped her face. "No, yes, I do not even know." Ruby simply waited. Olivia let out a broken breath. "Remember when I told you I found a way to pay for Mom's treatment?" Ruby's eyes widened, realization dawning. "Oh no," she whispered. "Live." "What did you do?" The story spilled out, halting, painful, through fresh tears. The offer, the contract. The night she had convinced herself meant something. Ruby listened without interrupting, one hand clamped tightly over Olivia's. When Olivia finished, Ruby's face was dark with fury. "I swear to God," Ruby hissed, "I will kill them both, rich bastards thinking they can play with people's lives." Olivia gave a brittle, bitter laugh. "The worst part. For a moment I actually believed he cared." Ruby's voice softened. "The important thing is, your mom's getting the treatment she needs. That's what matters." "Is it?" Olivia whispered. "Because it feels like I sold something I can never get back," before Ruby could answer. The cafe door chimed again. Olivia froze when she saw who stepped inside Lucas. His normally pristine appearance was rumpled, as if he had rushed straight from his car without caring how he looked. "Olivia," he called across the cafe, desperation raw in his voice. "Please, we need to talk." Ruby moved in front of Olivia without hesitation, arms crossed. "She's not available." Ruby said coolly, "Not now, not ever. Please." Lucas repeated the word, sounding foreign on his tongue. "Let me explain." Olivia squared her shoulders, anger surging to the surface, wrapping around her like armor. "Explain what?" she demanded, voice cold. "The bet. How much you won. How easy it was to buy the poor, desperate waitress." Lucas flinched as if she had struck him. "It wasn't like that," he said hoarse. "Not to me." "Really?" she said, stepping closer until she could see every crack in his carefully built facade. "Because your charming friend Richard just explained it perfectly." "You must believe me," Lucas said, voice rough. "It wasn't just a game." "It was always a game," Olivia said quietly. "You just didn't expect to lose." She turned away, heart pounding. "You won, Mr. Sterling," she said over her shoulder. "Congratulations. This isn't over," Lucas called after her, but she did not look back. "It is for me." She paused only once at the door, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. "Some things are priceless. Lucas, dignity, trust. Maybe next time bet on those." Lucas stood there, frozen, something like regret etched across his face. But Olivia did not stay to watch him leave. Ruby slipped an arm around her shoulders. "You okay?" "No," Olivia whispered, blinking back tears. "But I will be." Outside, she watched as Lucas's black car pulled away and disappeared into the gray streets of Boston. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She barely registered. Olivia finally made it to the hospital. Her legs trembling with exhaustion, she refused to show. Inside, her mother sat up in bed, practically glowing a light Olivia had not seen in months. The news of the approved treatment filled the small room with cautious hope. Olivia sank into the chair beside her, taking her mother's frail hand between both of hers, clinging to it like an anchor. "You look troubled, sweetheart," her mother said gently, brushing Olivia's hair away from her forehead, the way she used to when Olivia was small. "I am just tired, Mom," Olivia whispered, forcing a smile. Her mother chuckled softly. "You know what your father used to say, the heart knows its own price." Olivia blinked back sudden tears. I never understood that, she said hoarsely. I think, her mother said, squeezing her hand. It means that whatever burden you carry, whatever price you think you paid, love demands no repayment. It is already paid in full. The tears Olivia had fought so long to contain finally spilled over, but this time they cleansed instead of burned. Her mother said nothing more, just held her as Olivia cried, offering the one thing no amount of money could ever buy: unconditional love. Across the city, Lucas Sterling sat in his office, the early morning light painting long shadows across the sleek floor. With slow, deliberate movements, he fed the contract into the shredder. The pages that had once bound them together, turned into meaningless strips of paper. But the real bond, the one neither of them had anticipated, remained stubbornly, painfully intact. Lucas had not touched a drink in 3 days. Still, the room seemed to sway around him. The front page of the Boston Financial Times declared Sterling Industries' latest acquisition a monumental triumph. He could not bring himself to care. You look terrible, Richard Stanton remarked from the doorway, leaning casually against the frame. Lucas did not look up. Still brooding over the waitress? Richard prodded, his tone mocking. Lucas's grip on his pen tightened. Get out! Oh, come on, Lucas, Richard said, pushing away from the door. It was just a bet. She got her money, we got our fun, everyone wins. The pen snapped in Lucas's hand, black ink bleeding onto his skin like a wound. You had no right, he said through clenched teeth. Someone had to. Richard shrugged, adjusting his tie in that self-satisfied way Lucas had come to loathe. You were getting involved. It was embarrassing. Lucas rose from his chair slowly, every movement controlled, dangerous. You want to know what is embarrassing? He said, voice low. That I let you convince me to treat a person's life like a game, that I thought I could rationalize it as anything other than cruelty. Oh, please, Richard scoffed. She's probably out shopping with your money right now. Lucas slammed his fist onto the desk, making Richard flinch. The money went straight to her mother's medical treatment. Lucas said, his voice like steel. Every penny you knew that you had your facts lined up before you ever approached her at the cafe. A flicker of guilt crossed Richard's face. It was business, he muttered. No. Lucas snapped. It was personal. You hated that. For the first time, I was feeling something real. Richard laughed, cold and dismissive. You bought her for a night, Lucas. That is not real, that is a transaction. Get out of my office, Lucas said, deadly quiet, and consider our partnership under review. You cannot be serious, Richard sputtered. Over some waitress? No, Lucas said. Over the fact that I finally see you for what you are. Richard left without another word, the door slamming behind him. Lucas sank heavily into his chair, pressing the heels of his hands into his eyes. His computer screen blinked with an unopened email, an update from his private investigator. He clicked it open without much thought. Photos filled the screen. Olivia sitting beside her mother in a sterile hospital room, both of them smiling real unguarded smiles. Hope shining on their faces. The knowledge should have comforted him. Instead, it twisted inside him like a knife. Across Boston, Olivia moved through the Willow Cafe like a ghost. Every British accent made her flinch, every tall, dark-suited figure made her stomach knot, but she kept moving, kept smiling, kept breathing. During the afternoon rush, Ruby leaned in with a small grin. Your regular's back, she whispered. The cute architect Michael Chen, the one who tips too much. Olivia glanced up and spotted him, kind eyes, warm smile, standing patiently in line. For the first time in days, something in Olivia's chest loosened, just a little. Maybe not every chapter had to end in heartbreak. Maybe some beginnings were still worth hoping for. Michael's warm smile and kind eyes were a stark contrast to the sharp memories of Lucas Sterling that haunted Olivia's every waking moment. He asked about you yesterday, Ruby said, casually restocking the pastry case without looking at her. Said he would love to take you to dinner sometime. I am not ready, Olivia said, tying her apron a little too tightly. It has been 3 weeks, Liv. You cannot let those jerks ruin your whole life. It is not about them, Olivia muttered, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they were a lie. It was about Lucas, about how he had made her feel powerful and powerless, seen and discarded all at once. The afternoon passed in a blur of orders and mechanical smiles. When her shift finally ended, Olivia made her way straight to the hospital, the only place she could still breathe. Her mother sat propped up in bed, cheeks pink with health for the first time in months. "There's my girl." She beamed, her voice stronger. "And just in time, the doctor has some wonderful news." Standing beside the bed was Dr. Patricia Chen Michael's sister, as Olivia had learned, a tablet cradled in her arms. "The treatment is working even better than we anticipated," Dr. Chen said, smiling. "At this rate, you could be in remission within a few months." The words should have filled Olivia with unfiltered joy. Instead, they came tangled with the bitter taste of everything it had cost to get here. That's incredible!" Olivia managed, hugging her mother carefully. "There's something else." Dr. Chen added, her expression thoughtful. "This morning, the hospital received an anonymous donation, enough to cover the full cost of treatment past, present, and future." Olivia went still. "What?" she whispered. "Someone covered everything." Dr. Chen confirmed gently. "It seems you have a guardian angel." The room swayed slightly, muttering an excuse. Olivia stumbled into the hospital garden, the cool air slicing against her skin. Before she could stop herself, her fingers moved automatically, unblocking Lucas's number. She called. He answered on the first ring. "Olivia." His voice sounded strained. "Was it you?" She whispered, her throat tight. "The donation?" A pause. "Yes." "Why?" "Because it was never about the money," Lucas said, his voice rough with emotion. "And because I needed you to know that I am sorry, that I wanted to do something real." "I do not want your guilt money," Olivia said, voice cracking. "It is not guilt," he said quietly. "It is penance, restitution. A poor attempt to undo what I cannot ever fully fix." Olivia sank onto a nearby bench, her free hand shaking. "You cannot buy back trust, Lucas." "I know," he said, sounding exhausted. "I am not trying to. I needed you to know that night was real for me." She laughed bitterly. "Do you even know what real means?" "I did not," he said simply. "Not until you." The honesty in his voice shattered her composure. "Please," Lucas said, desperation bleeding through. "Let me explain." Face to face. "No." Olivia said the word, trembling. "I cannot. Lucas asked, "Or will not?" "Both," she whispered, wiping her eyes. "Thank you for helping my mother. But whatever there was between us, it has to stay in the past." The silence stretched between them like a wound. "I understand," Lucas said. Finally, voice barely audible. "But Olivia, that night it was real for me too." Before he could say anything more, Olivia ended the call, pressing the phone to her chest like a shield against the storm inside her. Inside, her mother dozed peacefully, pain-free for the first time in what felt like forever. That sight anchored Olivia. Whatever the price had been, whatever scars she carried, her mother would live, and for now, that had to be enough. When Olivia got back to the small apartment she shared with Ruby, she found her best friend waiting with 2 spoons and a tub of ice cream. "Spill." Ruby demanded, plopping onto the couch. "All of it now." Olivia told her everything about the donation, about Lucas's call, about the confusing mess of emotions she could not seem to untangle. Ruby listened without interruption, her eyes darkening with every word. When Olivia finally fell silent, Ruby set down her spoon with a firm click. "You know what I think," she said. "I think that man is in love with you." "Do not be ridiculous," Olivia muttered. "I am serious," Ruby insisted. Think about it. The donation, the way he looks at you, and, the fact that he is apparently declaring civil war on his own company. Olivia frowned. What are you talking about? Ruby lifted her phone, flipping it around to show a business news alert. Ruby thrust her phone into Olivia's hands, the headline flashing like a beacon. Sterling Industries restructures following leadership shakeup. Lucas Sterling buys out partner. Below it, a photo showed Lucas exiting a board meeting, his face etched with grim determination, the same look he had worn that night, the night everything changed. Olivia stared at the image for a long moment before finally speaking. It does not matter, she said quietly. Some things cannot be fixed with money or grand gestures. No, Ruby agreed. But maybe they can be fixed with truth and time, and maybe even a little forgiveness. That night, Olivia went to bed with her mind spinning in endless circles. In her dreams, she was back in that hotel suite. Only this time, when Lucas asked her to stay, she did. When she woke, her pillow was damp with tears she could not explain. Across the city, Lucas stood at the penthouse windows, the lights of Boston sprawling before him like a living sea. In his hand, he held a battered business card, the one he had once slid across the cafe counter with such arrogance the corner was stained with coffee. A scar from the place where their story had begun. He had built his empire on the belief that everything had a price. Now holding that worn piece of cardstock, he realized there were some things truly beyond value, and he had lost them before he even understood their worth. The charity gala at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts was not Olivia's scene. But when Dr. Chen invited her to speak about her mother's recovery, Olivia had found herself unable to refuse. The experimental program needed funding, and her mother's story had the power to inspire. Standing before the mirror, in a borrowed midnight blue gown, Olivia barely recognized her own reflection. The silk clung elegantly to her figure, the deep hue making her look regal. Ruby had insisted on doing her makeup, smoothing away months of stress and sleepless nights, transforming her into someone she almost believed in. "You look incredible," Ruby said, adjusting the neckline with a proud smile. "Those rich snobs are not ready for you." Olivia managed a nervous laugh. "I just have to get through the speech without throwing up." "You will," Ruby said firmly, squeezing her shoulder. "Remember, you are not here as anyone's property. You are a survivor, a daughter, a warrior." The words struck deeper than Ruby could possibly know. 2 months had passed since the night that had shattered everything, and in the slow aftermath, small miracles had taken root. The newspapers were still buzzing about Sterling Industries restructuring, the ousting of Richard Stanton, and the whispered rumors about a massive shift in the company's culture. The taxi ride to the museum felt surreal. Olivia clutched her small purse inside, which sat her carefully folded speech, practiced, memorized, but still trembling inside her chest. The museum's grand entrance glittered under soft lights, figures in evening gowns and tuxedos ascending the marble steps like modern royalty. Olivia took a deep breath and followed them, her borrowed heels clicking nervously against stone. Miss Hart. Dr. Chen approached in a brilliant crimson dress, her smile bright and genuine. "I am so glad you made it. Come, there are people you must meet." The next hour blurred into a haze of introductions. Doctors, philanthropists, researchers, faces, smiling hands, shaking promises whispered over champagne. When it was Olivia's turn to speak, her voice only wavered once. She told them about her mother, about hope, about survival, and she watched with growing wonder as walls softened. Wallets opened and real change began to bloom. It felt good turning her pain into purpose. Then across the crowded room, she saw him, Lucas. Standing tall in a black tuxedo, his posture rigid, his head bowed slightly as he listened to a group of investors. He had not seen her yet. For a moment, Olivia allowed herself to simply look at him. He seemed thinner, sharper somehow. The easy arrogance that once cloaked him like armor had been stripped away, replaced by something quieter, something heavier. He has been instrumental in funding the program, Dr. Chen said. Following Olivia's gaze, Dr. Chen followed Olivia's gaze across the grand hall. Mr. Sterling's donation is the reason we were able to expand the trial, she said, her voice warm. 10 more patients, 10 more chances at life. Olivia's heart clenched painfully. I did not know he would be here, she said stiffly. He is our biggest supporter now. Dr. Chen added a touch of curiosity in her tone. Insisted on remaining anonymous, though you know him. We have met, Olivia said, turning away, just as Lucas happened to glance up. Their eyes locked across the crowded room, and for a moment the noise, the glitter, the clinking of glasses, all of it vanished. Lucas started moving toward her, but before he could reach her, another group intercepted him, shaking hands and pulling him into conversation. Olivia took the opportunity to slip away, weaving through the crowd until she found a small balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool against her flushed skin. Below, Boston glittered like scattered diamonds, distant and indifferent. You are running again. His voice came from behind her, low and familiar. Olivia did not turn. Not running, she said quietly, just breathing. Lucas stepped onto the balcony, careful to leave a respectful distance between them. You look beautiful, he said. Do not. Olivia whispered, her throat tightening. It is just an observation, he said, gripping the stone railing. I did not know you would be speaking tonight. He added, likewise. Olivia said, finally glancing at him. Anonymous donor. A ghost of a smile touched Lucas's mouth. I did not want to complicate things by throwing money at the situation or trying to prove something. He turned fully toward her, the city lights carving sharp lines across his face. This was never about you, Olivia, or even about us. It was about doing something that mattered. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, cutting straight through the armor she had so carefully rebuilt. Why? She asked. Why the change? You, he said simply, meeting you. The word hung between them like a bridge neither of them dared cross. You showed me, he said, voice rough, that success without soul is just another kind of failure. Olivia's defenses trembled under the weight of his words. I am not asking for forgiveness, Lucas said, running a hand through his hair, a rare sign of vulnerability. I know I do not deserve it, but you need to know, meeting you changed everything. $1 million revelation, Olivia said, bitterly, though her voice shook. No, he said, stepping closer, a priceless one. She did not move away this time. I spent my whole life believing everything had a price. He said quietly, you proved me wrong. Applause drifted from the hall behind them, a reminder that her speech was moments away. I have to go. Olivia whispered, have dinner with me. Lucas said, urgency in his eyes. Not tonight, not tomorrow. When you are ready, if you are ever ready, no contracts, no games, just truth. Before she could answer, Dr. Chen appeared at the doorway. Olivia, you are on in 5 minutes. I will be right there, she called back. When she turned to Lucas again, he was already stepping back into the shadows. Think about it, he said softly. That is all I am asking. Her speech was a triumph. Standing at the podium under the glittering chandeliers, Olivia spoke of her mother's journey of survival, of hope, and of the anonymous donors who had made it all possible. When she mentioned them, her eyes found Lucas in the crowd. He nodded once, a small, solemn acknowledgement. Something unspoken passed between them, a beginning, not an ending. The rest of the night blurred conversations, handshakes, promises of support. Yet through it all, Olivia felt Lucas's presence across the room like a quiet pull she could not quite ignore. Later, as the gala wound down, Olivia found herself alone on the balcony once more. The city below had softened into a quieter glow, though Boston never truly slept. Her phone buzzed with a message from Ruby. Your speech was incredible. How are you holding up? Olivia stared at the message, thinking about pride and redemption, about the price of forgiveness. He asked me to dinner, she typed back. Fact, Ruby's response came almost instantly, and Olivia hesitated, her fingers trembling slightly over the screen. I do not know. Ruby's reply was immediate. Yes, you do. Olivia closed her eyes, the night air cooling the heat on her cheeks. She thought of the raw honesty in Lucas's voice, the changes he had made, not for show, not for her, but because he had finally learned what could not be bought. And maybe, just maybe, some things were still worth believing in. Something inside Olivia had shifted in ways she could not easily name. From the balcony she watched as Lucas slipped out of the museum alone, his figure illuminated by the pale glow of the streetlights. Before she could talk herself out of it, Olivia pulled out the business card she had kept tucked away for months. Not the one from the beginning, but the second one, the one he had left at the cafe after everything fell apart. His personal number was scrawled across the back in his own handwriting. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed the message. Tuesday, 8 o'clock, Willow Cafe. We close at 7, but I will have coffee ready. The reply came seconds later. I will be there. Olivia tucked her phone away, her heart thudding wildly with something that might have been fear or hope, because some debts could not be paid with money, some wounds needed time rather than treasure to heal, and some stories she was learning did not end where you thought they would. Above her, the stars fought to pierce through Boston's haze of light, stubborn and persistent. Olivia thought of her mother growing stronger with each day. She thought of redemption, second chances, and the steep cost of pride. Her fingers brushed the stone railing where Lucas's hand had rested earlier, feeling the ghost of lingering warmth. Tuesday was 5 days away, time enough to prepare, time enough to decide. But deep down she already knew some choices were not about logic or caution. They were about the heart's own math, a calculation no ledger could capture. The Willow Cafe felt different after hours. The usual hum of conversation and clinking dishes had faded into a soft, cavernous silence. Chairs were stacked atop tables. Only one small table remained tucked in a cozy corner, a French press waiting. Olivia moved through her closing routine on autopilot, her nerves taut as a violin string. You do not have to do this, Ruby had said before leaving. We can call it off. But Olivia knew she could not. Some conversations had to happen no matter how hard. At 7:58, she heard a car pull up outside, punctual, as always. Through the window she watched Lucas approach, not in a suit this time, but dark jeans and a simple cashmere sweater, more human, less armor. The bell above the door chimed softly as he entered. For a moment, they simply stood there, the empty cafe around them, feeling sacred, somehow heavy with everything left unsaid. You came, Olivia said. Finally. Did you think I would not? Lucas asked. I was not sure, she admitted. She gestured toward the lone table. Coffee's ready. He followed her in silence, taking in the stillness of the space. I have never seen it like this, Lucas said, peaceful. That is one word for it, Olivia replied, pouring coffee from the French press. Another might be empty, like a lot of things in my life lately. He accepted the cup from her, their fingers brushing for a fleeting moment. Thank you for agreeing to meet, he said. I am still not sure why I did, Olivia said, sitting across from him. You are, Lucas said quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. The same reason I asked, we need to finish what we started. And what is that? She asked. The transaction, the bet. The words still stung, but less than they once had. Lucas set his cup down carefully. I deserve that, he said. But no, I mean the truth, all of it. Olivia nodded once. I am listening. Lucas took a long breath, steadying himself. The bet with Richard was real. He said finally, We were drunk arguing about human nature. He claimed everyone had a price, that principles were just luxuries people shed when they became inconvenient. I disagreed. He paused, his jaw tightening. But then I realized I was a hypocrite. I had never been tested. I had never been forced to choose between survival and my beliefs. So, Olivia said quietly, you decided to test someone else. Lucas's shoulders sagged slightly. I decided, he said, to test myself. Lucas's hands tightened around his coffee cup, his knuckles white against the porcelain. I thought I could prove Richard wrong, he said bitterly. Or worse, prove him right. He exhaled slowly, pain flickering in his eyes. When I saw you that morning, your pride, your strength, you became the perfect target. I thought I would teach you a lesson about the world. He shook his head. Instead, you taught me. He met her gaze across the small table, raw and unguarded. You showed me courage, sacrifice, what real strength looks like. Olivia sipped her coffee, slowly giving herself a moment to breathe. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve the whole truth, Lucas said, voice rough. And because every day since then I have been trying to become someone worthy of the way you looked at me. Before you knew, the sincerity in his voice ached inside her chest. And have you? She asked softly. No, he said without hesitation. But I am trying. Every decision I make, every change at Sterling Industries, every donation. They are not about redemption, they are about growth, about finally understanding what matters. And what matters? Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Truth. Lucas said, purpose. The ability to look in the mirror and see more than profit. He leaned in slightly, his eyes holding hers. You matter, Olivia. What happened between us matters, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to honor that. Olivia stood suddenly, needing air, needing distance. The cafe walls felt too close, too full of memories. Lucas followed her to the door without a word. She unlocked it, stepping into the crisp night. The street was quiet, bathed in the soft gold of the street lamps. I hated you, she said, her voice raw. Not for the money, not even for the bet, but for making me feel something real in the middle of something fake. It was not fake, Lucas said, moving closer, his voice steady. The beginning was wrong. The circumstances were poisoned, but what happened between us, that was real. How can you be so sure? Olivia asked. Because nothing has been the same since, Lucas said simply. I measure every moment of my life against that night, and everything else falls short. Olivia turned toward him and found him closer than she expected. I am not the same either, she admitted quietly. I know. Lucas said, his hand hovering near her cheek but not quite touching. You are stronger, wiser, even more beautiful. Do not, she whispered, but she did not step away. It is just the truth, Lucas said gently. No agenda, no games, just a man telling a woman she still takes his breath away. The streetlight threw soft shadows across his face, illuminating the raw vulnerability there. Olivia felt her carefully built walls shaking. I cannot go back, she whispered. I am not asking you to, Lucas said. I am asking you to move forward with me. Slowly, his hand cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing lightly across her skin. No contracts, no prices, just us finding out what is real. The warmth of his touch sent a tremor through her. Memories surfaced, not of anger or shame, but of connection, of being seen, truly seen. And if it does not work, she asked, her voice trembling, then we will know we tried. Lucas said softly, that we did not let fear or pride steal our future. Olivia closed her eyes and leaned just slightly into his touch. I am scared, she whispered. Good, he said, smiling faintly. So am I. It means it matters. A car passed down the street, its headlights briefly washing over them, Scattering the fragile moment, Olivia stepped back, the cool air rushing between them. But something fundamental had shifted. "I should finish closing up," she said, her voice steadier. "Let me help," Lucas offered. Together, they moved through the closing routine setting, alarms, locking drawers, their movements a quiet, tentative dance around each other. As Olivia secured the last lock, she felt something unexpected settle over her. Peace. At her car, Lucas hesitated before speaking again. "Have dinner with me?" he said. "A real date, no pressure, no expectations, just food and conversation, and whatever comes next." Olivia looked at him. Really? Looked at him. The arrogant CEO was gone. In his place stood someone different, someone flawed, someone real, still complicated, still human, but maybe worth the risk. "One condition," Olivia said, her voice calm but firm. "Anything," Lucas replied without hesitation. "We start fresh, no more apologies, no more guilt, just two people getting to know each other properly." The smile that bloomed across his face transformed him. "Deal," he said. Later that evening, as Olivia drove home, she realized she was smiling too. The past couldn't be undone, but maybe it didn't have to be erased to matter less. Maybe it could be reshaped, turned from a wound into wisdom, from a scar into quiet strength. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. "Thank you for tonight, for the coffee, for the truth, for a second chance." Olivia's reply came with unexpected ease, her first honest words to him in a long time. "Thank you for becoming someone worth taking a chance on." Outside, the city lights blurred, each one like a glowing star in her own private constellation of change. And she was beginning to understand something simple, something profound. The most valuable things in life were often free, and the richest currencies weren't counted in dollars, but in truth, in courage, and in the willingness to begin again. Lucas's idea of a first date surprised her. No private rooftop, no luxury restaurant. Instead, he suggested a walk on the High Line at sunset. She found him waiting at the Gansevoort Street entrance, 2 paper cups in hand. Hot chocolate. He explained, offering one to her. "Better than champagne when you're walking." Something in that small gesture, the thoughtfulness, the simplicity, touched her more deeply than any grand display ever could. "No suit today?" Olivia asked, noting his dark wool coat and knit scarf. "I am trying something new," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "Being human." They started walking slowly through the elevated park, quiet in the early evening. October had turned the gardens to a canvas of red and gold, and the sun setting over the Hudson cast everything in liquid amber. "Tell me something real," Olivia said softly, warming her hands around the cup. "Something you've never told anyone." Lucas was silent for a moment, then said, "I hate my job." She stopped walking, startled. "But you built it?" "I built a prison," he corrected. "Every merger, every acquisition, it was about proving something to my father, to the world, to myself." He leaned against the railing eyes on the horizon. "Now I want to turn it into something meaningful. The hospital program, that's only the beginning. I want to build real value, not just wealth." Olivia studied him, really looked at the sharp edges that had softened at the man, slowly emerging beneath years of armor. "That's why Richard fought you," she said. "He couldn't understand." Lucas turned to her, eyes steady. "You made me see the difference between price and value." "Lucas, let me finish," he said. "That night, seeing your struggle, the weight of your choice, it shattered something in me. It made me question everything I thought I knew about worth." A cool breeze swept through the park, carrying the scent of leaves and late-blooming flowers. "Your turn," he said quietly. "Tell me something real." Olivia took a slow breath. "I'm terrified," she said. "Of what?" "Of forgetting who I am." She looked at him, her voice steady despite the ache behind it. "There's something between us, strong, magnetic, but the last time I gave into it, I lost myself. I am afraid of disappearing into you again. Lucas stepped closer, but didn't reach for her. I don't want you to disappear, he said gently. I want you to shine. They stood in silence, surrounded by golden light and the hum of the city below. Pretty words, she murmured. True words, he replied. He gestured toward the glowing skyline. Once I looked at this city and saw a chessboard, places to conquer, deals to win. Now I see stories behind every window, lives, people. They continued walking, passing through the Chelsea Market Passage, where warm light spilled across the walkway, and the scent of baked bread lingered in the air. Something between them had shifted again, not back, but forward. The scent of fresh bread and roasted coffee lingered in the air. My mom asked about you. Olivia said suddenly. Lucas's steps slowed. She knows everything. She watched his face closely. No reaction escaped her. She wanted to meet the man who helped save her life. I didn't. You did, Olivia said. Voice soft but firm. The initial payment, the donation, the research support. She's here because of you. Lucas stopped walking and turned to face her fully. No, he said, she's here because of you. All I did was sign checks. You made the impossible choice. You chose her life over your pride. That's courage. Tears stung Olivia's eyes. I never saw it that way. Of course not, Lucas replied gently. You've been too busy punishing yourself. His hand found hers steady, warm, grounding. Let me take you to dinner. There's a little Italian place around the corner. Pasta like poetry. The restaurant was tiny, tucked between two brownstones. Red checkered tablecloths, candle stubs in old wine bottles. The air smelled of garlic and slow-cooked comfort. The owner greeted Lucas like family, ushering them to a quiet corner beneath a worn brick archway. You come here often? Olivia asked, slipping into the seat across from him. I found it after everything I used to walk the city at night trying to make sense of things. Somehow I kept ending up here, thinking about you. The words landed softly but heavily, thick with honesty. Before Olivia could reply, the waiter appeared with warm bread and 2 glasses of wine. To new beginnings. Lucas said, lifting his glass, to truth. Olivia replied, clinking hers gently to his. The meal was perfect in its simplicity. Handmade pasta, tender meat sauce that tasted of generations. They talked about everything and nothing. Her mother's recovery, his company's transformation. The shared comfort of early morning coffee and silent late-night walks. When a slow, familiar song drifted from the old speakers, Lucas stood and extended his hand. Dance with me. There's no dance floor. Since when do we follow rules? She laughed, standing there in the narrow space beside their table. They swayed together. It felt nothing like the first time. No tension, no seduction, just 2 people learning each other again. I never told you, Lucas murmured near her ear. But that night when you left before dawn, it felt like you took all the air with you. I couldn't breathe. Olivia's fingers gripped his shoulders. I couldn't stay, she whispered. If I had. I know, he said, but I wanted you to. God, I wanted you to. She looked up. His eyes were darker than usual, with memory, with feeling, Olivia. He said gently, I'm not going to kiss you, not yet. Not until you want me to. Not until you trust me again. The walk to her car was quiet the night around them, alive with movement. Yet they moved through it like an island of stillness. At her door, she paused. Thank you, she said. For this, for tonight, for trying. Lucas touched her cheek briefly but reverently. Thank you, he said, for letting me try. Dinner again, next week. Yes, she replied without hesitation. Later that night, curled beneath the covers, Olivia's phone lit up with a message. I meant what I said about the kiss, but know this. When it happens, it'll be because you want it, because it's real, because you choose it. She pressed the phone to her chest, heart thudding with something she hadn't felt in a long time. After everything, the contract, the betrayal, the distance. Here they were, starting not over but anew, from the ashes of something broken. They were building something honest. Her reply was simple. Real is worth waiting for. Across the city, Lucas sat in his penthouse office, the lights of Boston flickering below like quiet witnesses. He read her message once, then again, and smiled. Below the towering skyline, the city pulsed with its usual hunger for speed and power. But for once, Lucas Sterling wasn't thinking about any of it. He was thinking about hot chocolate in paper cups, about dancing in narrow aisles of tiny restaurants, about second chances and the priceless weight of slowly, carefully earning someone's trust, one moment at a time. 3 weeks of real dates had passed, 3 weeks of quiet dinners, long walks and conversations that sometimes drifted until sunrise. Everything had changed, and yet nothing had. The past was never far, a shadow lurking behind every laugh, every lingering touch. It came crashing back one Tuesday morning. Ruby burst into the break room of the Willow Cafe, her tablet clutched tight, face pale. "Liv, you need to see this." The headline blared across the screen like a siren. Sterling Industries splits over secret $1 million wager, the bet that sparked a corporate civil war. A photo accompanied the story, Lucas and Richard frozen mid-dispute. The article was merciless. It detailed the bet, the fallout, the fracture of Sterling Industries. And though Olivia was unnamed, the story described her clearly enough: an anonymous waitress, a pawn in a billionaire's game. Anyone who had followed the headlines or who frequented Willow Cafe could fill in the blanks. Her phone buzzed. Lucas's name lit up the screen. "I'm on my way, please let me explain." But the damage was already done. Customers were whispering, stealing glances. One woman even took a photo of Olivia while pretending to check her messages. "Go home," Ruby urged. "I've got your tables. Let it blow over." "No," Olivia said, jaw tight. "I won't hide." Lucas arrived 20 minutes later, looking pale, rain-soaked and stripped of his usual polish. She didn't stop serving customers. Didn't even look at him. Just moved with practiced ease, her face carved from marble. "Olivia," he said gently. "Not here," she replied, nodding toward the alley door. 5 minutes. They stepped into the narrow alley behind the cafe. The air smelled of wet pavement and early autumn, the wind tugging at her hair. "Richard leaked it," Lucas said without preamble. "He's trying to ruin the company before the final split." "Did you know?" Olivia's voice was calm, but beneath the surface fire. "Did you know he might do this?" "No, God, no," Lucas said. "I never thought, but you knew it was possible." He hesitated. "I thought we had it sealed. The legal team." "Just stop," Olivia cut in. "Do you know what it feels like to have your lowest moment go public, to be reduced to the girl who sold herself when all I did was try to save someone I loved?" "You're more than that," he said quickly. "So much more." "Am I?" she asked, voice brittle. "Because right now I feel exposed, stripped bare, and every moment we've shared, every coffee, every walk feels like another layer of damage control." "That's not true," he said, stepping toward her. She backed away. "Is it not? Or is this just another transaction you paid for my forgiveness this time, not my body?" The words hit like blows. Lucas stumbled back, as if they had physical weight. "How can you think that after everything we've shared?" "That's the problem, Lucas. We shared the good, the sweet, but we never faced the ugly. We never dealt with the rot at the roots." Thunder rolled overhead, echoing the tremor in her chest. Lucas looked shattered. Smaller, somehow stripped of power and position. "Tell me how to fix this," he said softly. "You can't." Her tears came with the rain, slow and silent. Some things don't get fixed, not with money or power or even love. "Love," he echoed, his voice catching. "Yes, love." Olivia laughed once, bitter and broken. "Because that's what this is, isn't it? That's why it hurts this much. That's why every step forward feels like walking on glass." The rain began to fall harder now, soaking them both. His expensive coat clung to his frame, but he didn't seem to notice. He took one step forward, eyes searching hers. "Olivia, I love you," Lucas said softly. "I think I've loved you since that first night when you looked at me with that defiance even while breaking inside." "Don't," Olivia whispered. "No," he said, voice steady. "You need to hear this. I love your strength, your pride, your impossible, beautiful capacity for forgiveness. I love how you make me want to be better, live better, be better. Stop." She sobbed, tears streaming freely now, though the rain made them invisible. "You don't get to say these things now." She choked. "Not when everything's falling apart. When else should I say them?" He asked, stepping closer. "When it's safe, when it's easy." He was in front of her now, soaked through stripped bare. "I love you, Olivia Hart," he said, "not in spite of our past, but because of it, because of how we've grown." She stared at him, the man who had once bought a night with her and had since spent months trying to earn her heart. "I have to go back inside," she whispered. Voice breaking. He reached for her hand, held it tight. "Don't let him win," Lucas said quietly. "Don't let Richard or the past steal what we've built." "I need time," she said gently, pulling away. "Time to think, to feel this, to believe it." "How much time?" "I don't know." She stepped toward the cafe door, paused, then turned back. "I love you too," she said. "That's what makes this so hard." Inside, Ruby took one look at Olivia, rain-soaked, trembling, and pulled her into a fierce hug. "Go home, honey. For real this time." This time, Olivia didn't argue. She gathered her things quietly, ignoring the eyes that followed her, the whispers she didn't need to hear to understand. Her phone was buzzing. Messages from friends, from old classmates, even her mother's doctor. But it was the newest headline that stopped her heart. Lucas, Sterling, calls emergency press conference amid scandal. She curled up on the couch, a forgotten cup of tea cooling in her hands, and tapped into the live stream. There he was at a podium, shoulders square, face pale, but determined, standing before a wall of cameras and microphones. "Yes," Lucas said, "there was a bet, a careless, cruel wager, one I will regret for the rest of my life. But what began as arrogance became a lesson in value, in grace, in love." The room erupted with questions, but Lucas raised a hand. "The woman at the center of this story showed me something I had never known. That true worth can't be measured in bank statements or boardroom wins. She taught me that real power lies not in what you can buy, but in what you give freely. I won't name her, I won't open her to speculation or scrutiny, but I will say this: she changed my life. And if this scandal costs me my company, my fortune, my reputation, then so be it, because loving her was worth it." Olivia stared at the screen. Heart pounding. A message from Ruby popped up. "Girl." That man just went full Shakespeare on live TV. "He loves you." Another message followed from her mother. "Sometimes the greatest love stories start in the most unlikely places. Outside, the rain fell steady, washing the city clean." Olivia thought about what it meant to love someone after the wreckage, to choose them not because they were perfect, but because they were trying. Her fingers hovered over Lucas's contact. Then she typed, "I still need time, but I'm not running. Not this time." His reply came seconds later. "Take all the time you need, I'll wait, because you're worth it." Olivia set the phone down and looked out the window. The rain had softened Boston's edges, turning it into a watercolor city of glowing lights and blurred shadows, and for the first time in a long while, she breathed deeply, fully, because love, she was learning, wasn't always about grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it was about staying, about choosing to face the storm instead of running from it, about rebuilding something true from the ruins of something false. The memory of that first night still lingered, but it no longer haunted her. It had become part of their story, not the ending, not even the beginning, but a chapter they would carry into whatever came next. A chapter, that was all it was, a chapter in a book they were still writing together. It took Olivia 1 month to find her footing again. Through the relentless media frenzy, the stares, the whispers at the Willow Cafe, she held her head high and kept moving forward. Her mother's health continued to strengthen every test result, a quiet miracle. And strangely, the scandal had triggered an unexpected surge of donations to the hospital's research program. Lucas respected her need for space. Every morning, like clockwork, he sent the same message: I am here. No pressure, no demands, just here. Simple, steady. A constancy that said more than any grand apology ever could. It was a crisp December morning when Olivia finally replied, "The High Line tonight at sunset, where it all began." The day dragged by with excruciating slowness. Ruby insisted on helping her close early, fussing over her like a mother hen adjusting a scarf. "You sure about this?" Ruby asked, smoothing a wrinkle Olivia could not see. "I am sure about him," Olivia said. The certainty in her own voice startled her and warmed her too. The High Line in winter was another world. The gardens slept under a soft blanket of frost. Holiday lights twinkled gently against the encroaching dusk. At their old meeting spot, Lucas stood waiting, 2 paper cups in hand, hot chocolate, just like before. "Hi," he said simply, offering her a cup. "Hi," she replied, their fingers brushing lightly. "You look tired," she said, taking in the faint shadows under his eyes. He gave a small, self-deprecating smile. "Turns out love is a lot more exhausting than hostile takeovers." They started walking, their steps slow, their silences comfortable. The city stretched out beneath them, a living, breathing sea of light. "I saw the news," Olivia said after a while, "about Richard's lawsuit." Lucas nodded. "He is trying to claim I breached our agreement, that I made decisions without his consent." "Are you worried?" He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "About losing the company?" "No," he swallowed. "About losing you. Terrified." Olivia studied him in the fading light. There was no trace of the polished, arrogant man she had once feared, only Lucas, real, stripped down, human. "I am not yours to lose," she said softly. "I know," he said, voice rough. "You never were. That was the lesson I failed to see. And now I understand," he said. "Love is not ownership. It is a choice, every day, every moment, choosing each other freely." Olivia moved closer, drawn by the raw truth in his voice. "I visited your mother last week," he said. Suddenly surprise flickered across Olivia's face. "Why?" "Because I needed to understand, to see the woman you fought for, to thank her for raising someone strong enough to tear me apart and rebuild me." Tears stung Olivia's eyes. "What did she say?" Lucas smiled, a real smile, soft and full of awe. "She called me an idiot," he said, "and she told me about your father, how he taught you that real worth is found not in what you own but in what you give." He paused, voice thick. "She also said you've been miserable." "I needed the time," Olivia admitted. "I know." "Did it help?" She looked out at the city alive with light and life. "Yes," she said at last. "I needed to be sure. To know that I was choosing you for the right reasons, not to rewrite our past, but to build our future." She turned back to him, her heart steady for the first time in what felt like forever. "Our beginning does not define us," she said. "It is the choices we make now that do." Lucas reached for her, cupping her cheek, gently brushing away a tear she had not even realized had fallen. "I love you," he whispered. "Not because of where we started, not despite it, but because of who we are now." "I love you too," Olivia whispered back. "And I am ready." Instead of answering, she rose on her toes and kissed him. It was nothing like their first kiss, that desperate broken thing in a hotel room. This kiss was different, surer, softer, a beginning, not an ending. Their kiss was gentle, certain, full of quiet promises yet to be spoken. Lucas wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if she were both precious and unbreakable. When they finally parted, night had fully settled over the city. Holiday lights painted the High Line in a soft, magical glow. "I have something for you," Lucas said, reaching into the pocket of his coat. "If it's a contract, I swear I will push you off this walkway," Olivia warned, making him laugh, a real unguarded laugh. "No contracts," he promised. He pulled out a small, worn business card, the original one he had handed her that first morning at Willow Cafe. Its edges were frayed, the once sharp surface now soft with time and memories. "You kept it," she said, touched, despite herself. "As a reminder," Lucas said, "of who I was, of who I became, of who I want to be." He held it out. "I thought we could tear it up together. Start fresh." Olivia took one corner, feeling the weight of everything they had survived, thin but impossibly heavy. Together they ripped it into tiny pieces and let the winter wind carry the remnants away like confetti. "Now what?" she asked, watching the pieces dance into the night. "Now," Lucas said, pulling her close again, "we write our own story. No prices, no bets, no masks, just us." "It will not be easy," she warned. "The media, the lawsuit, the judgments, nothing worth having ever is," he said, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. "But we have already survived the worst. Everything else is just noise." They walked the rest of the High Line hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing, her mother's continued recovery, his plans to rebuild Sterling Industries into a force for good, their future stretching out before them like an empty page. At her car, Lucas hesitated, then pulled her into a final hug. "Move in with me," he murmured against her hair. Olivia leaned back, raising an eyebrow. "A little presumptuous, Mr. Sterling." "Not to the penthouse," he said quickly, a hint of nerves in his smile. "I sold it too many ghosts. I bought a brownstone in the West Village, 4 bedrooms, a garden space for your mother when she's stronger." "You bought a house without asking me," Olivia teased. "I bought a home," he corrected softly, "hoping you would help make it one." He met her gaze, utterly sincere. "Say yes." She pretended to consider. "Does it have a good coffee maker?" "The best." "And a kitchen bigger than the Willow Cafe?" "Twice as big," he promised. Olivia laughed, winding her arms around his neck. "Ask me properly." Lucas smiled, a brilliant boyish thing that made her heart flip, and dropped to one knee right there on the sidewalk. "Olivia Hart," he said, voice low and reverent. "Love of my life, woman who taught me what real worth means, will you build a home with me?" "Yes," she whispered, pulling him up into a kiss. "But I am keeping my job at the cafe." "I would not have it any other way," he said, his eyes shining. Later that night, they curled up together on the battered couch of the small hotel room Lucas had moved into after leaving the penthouse. Outside, Boston's lights danced across the dark sky. "You never did tell me," Lucas mused, tracing lazy patterns along her hand. "Why you accepted the deal that night, really?" Olivia was quiet for a long time. "Because even then," she said finally, "underneath all the anger and pride, I saw something in you. A loneliness that matched my own. A hunger for something real in a world obsessed with false values." She turned to look at him. This man who had once tried to buy her, and who had instead given her something priceless. "And now," she continued, "now I know some things cannot be bought. They can only be given, freely chosen, built." She cupped his face with infinite tenderness. "Like trust, like love, like us." Outside snow had begun to fall, softening the city into a dreamscape of blurred lights and infinite possibilities. In a hospital across town, her mother grew stronger every day, and in a brownstone waiting quietly in the West Village, the walls stood ready to be filled with laughter, with warmth, with love. In that small, quiet moment wrapped in each other, they were simply Olivia and Lucas. Two souls who had stumbled into something real in the most unlikely of places, and proved that sometimes the best love stories are the ones you never see coming, and so they proved it, that true love's worth could never be measured in dollars, contracts, or bets. Olivia Hart once faced an impossible choice: to sacrifice her pride for the chance to save the person she loved most. She chose love. And from that sacrifice, something even greater was born. A story, not of defeat, but of strength, of healing, of two broken souls building something real together. Now we ask you, have you ever been forced to choose between your principles and the survival of someone you love? We would love to hear your thoughts. Please share your experiences and reflections in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this journey. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel and leaving a comment. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. Stay tuned. There are many more beautiful journeys still waiting to be told.